Going on.
It's hey neighbor. Cluing up.
How you doing? Good. How are you?
Are you in the same neighborhood? Or
Yes,
just
ma'am.
oh my
2 blocks
gosh.
away. So my kids get rowdy.
Okay, we all ready? Okay, we're live, guys.
Okay.
Okay, let's call the April 26, 2022 finance meeting to order. Let it be noted that all committee members are here. We also have our director of finance, we have our COO, we have our fire chief, and we have division chief here. First item on the agenda is acceptance of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Do we hear any deletions, additions, changes? Okay, we're all in favor of accepting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
That passed unanimously. First item on the agenda is under ordinance and resolutions. Reading of ordinance 2022-07, an ordinance appropriating funds for the construction of a fire hall at 1342 Drakes Creek Road. I'm sorry, I skipped a minute, thank you. Approval of the February 22nd minute meetings. Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Okay. Any additions, deletions, discussion?
No.
Okay,
Thank you,
all in
Oz.
favor of accepting the February 22nd meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's been passed unanimously. Now, under ordinance and resolutions, and thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
Reading of ordinance 2022-07, an ordinance appropriating funds for the construction of a fire hall at 1342 Dirt Street Road. Do I hear a motion?
I so moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Do we want to hand it over to Scotty?
Yes,
for now?
please.
Or does the committee have any, want to have any discussion first?
I'd like for him to go over the, go over it and then we can ask questions.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Scotty, take it away.
So, as you know, we went out to bid for this project. I forget the exact date. I have to go back and look. 3 or 4 weeks ago, bids came in, obviously higher. As you know, if everybody's paying attention to what's going on in the economy around the world today, building costs and construction is skyrocketing along with everything else. Obviously, the bids came in higher than anticipated and what was originally appropriated for funding. So basically, this is just asking for the appropriation of funds to keep moving forward with that project. The bids that we received are good through May the 20th. The pricing is, I think, it was 45 days. If for whatever reason that does not happen, nothing happens between now and May 20th, the decision's not made, those prices would go away and we'd have to restart the whole bidding process again, which would in turn slow the project down and or could potentially cost more money depending on what happens in the economy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very competitive. I mean, we had 9 folks that actually were going to submit bids. It dropped to 6 the day of, 3 did not show up. And we had a range anywhere from 5.2 up to about $6.2 million.
And we
Okay.
chose Boger, right?
Yes, based on the recommendation from Wald HFR, which is our architects.
Have we locked into that?
No, we have to appropriate the money first.
Okay, so I have a question. We are looking at a 3-bay fire hall.
Mhm.
And when we approved that at BOMA a year ago, I guess it's been about a year, right? Was it 3-bay? Did we approve a 3-bay or we just was the specs? I can't remember.
So all that goes back to the last 2 or 3 years of conversations with the county of whether EMS was going to be there or not be there.
Right.
We designed it at first for 2, but then the conversation started again about, is the county going to contribute anything?
Right.
Are they going to move the ambulance from Shackle Island out there? We felt like it was the time to go ahead and bid it out with the option for the 3rd bay in case EMS did decide to move their ambulance to that location.
Keep in mind, only until a year ago did we really are sure that it was going to be at the location that we're talking about now. as
Right,
opposed
right.
to, for the place.
Right. So right now we're looking at a bay with a truck, a bay with an EMS, And the third bay would be for what?
So potentially for EMS, nothing's been confirmed from them if they're gonna move that ambulance from Shackle Island to there. There's the possibility for that if they so choose to do that. If you'll go to any of our other stations, we've kind of outgrown. We've got a heavy rescue truck, a special operations truck, that is stationed at Station 3. It's occupied, a bay there. My idea, my plan would be to eventually staff up that special operations vehicle, put extrication equipment on it, put it on that station. It would run the bypass and we would quit running both trucks to extrications, which would wear or reduce the wear and tear on those heavy trucks.
Okay. So Mayor, can you tell us what happened to the memorandum of understanding? What happened there? I think that the citizens deserve to know.
I think you're right. We haven't got a response from the county, which is good and bad. We haven't gotten a yes, we haven't gotten a no. So we continue to work, and I've had conversations this past weekend with a county commissioner. I think that there is willingness among some county commissioners, but all of them are running for reelection.
Right.
Yeah. The conversations that I've had, and nobody has flat out said this to me, I feel like if the city pays that third bay, the answer is going to be no from the county. I think if we offer the third bay to the county, we have a better chance of getting a yes,
Right.
that they would contribute to it. The problem is timing, is that we've got a decision to make in 32 days, I think it is. Maybe less than that.
Yes, sir, less than that.
23rd.
Okay.
The 20th is the deadline.
So we have a decision to make. Primaries are May 3rd.
Right.
Is a week from today. And the county commission is not going to appropriate money to us in time. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in their budget process.
So-
We get some verbal commitments, possibly.
So if we scale back the specifications of the fire hall to 2 bay, what will come off this 2.9?
Nothing. We just won't add the 400.
400,000.
400,000.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
400,000.
Okay.
And can I
Yes.
tell you something, Karen?
Yes.
In 2015, we added a partial third bay onto Fire Hall 5. The initial cost came in at $250,000. When all that was said and done, the final cost was $650,000. So in my opinion, adding a third bay at the time of construction at $400,000, 7 years later, to me is a bargain in this world that we're living in.
So my conversations with county commissioners have said, I don't think it's very likely, of course, this is my impression. I don't think it's very likely they're gonna give us a lump sum. But what they are interested in talking about is in effect leasing the third bay and all of them throughout the city, not just this one, that they would begin payments for our third bays, for the ambulance base that they use. So one thing that I think it's, as a general rule, always cheaper to build it when you're building instead of an addition at a later time. And we know that area is growing. We know Hendersonville is growing. We know there's going to be a need for ambulance service there at some point. If we build the third bay, we have the ability to say, you want to put EMS here? This is what we require of you if you want to do it, because we own it. And then we're, I think, in a very strong position to negotiate. If you want access to this resource that we have, this is what we want you to do for it.
And Scotty, let me ask you another question. If we don't have that third bay, does that mean we're not going to be able to provide medical ambulance service to Autumn Creek, Durham Farms, Ivy Point? Add the other two. I can't remember the other two.
Fountain Brook.
Fountain Brook, et cetera.
It won't prevent us from providing services, no.
Well, from that fire station, let me clarify my question. Is that going to prevent us from offering ambulance service from stop Fire Station 7. And then we would still have to use Fire Station 5 with one of the longest response times in the city.
If the ambulance service chose to put one there, that would be a discussion we'd have to have. They have not entered that discussion with us.
Right.
So right now, the way it stands, we won't have an ambulance at that station. We were building it with plans of if they chose to relocate that one from Shackle Island back to here, that we would have room to accommodate that.
So if we don't do the bay, the third bay, we won't, I'm not getting.
So
the answer I'm looking
we
for.
can, ideally, the two bays would house an engine company and the ambulance. The third bay, the need for the third bay, in my opinion, is for potential growth. Again, we're maxed out on a lot of our stations. We've got several $100,000 of pieces of equipment that need a place to be instead of just sitting outside. I would like to staff that special operations or heavy rescue to start reducing the truck time. So if we don't have that third bay, if in a couple of years, we're going to need to purchase a new truck. I want to keep our truck in reserve status. It'll help us ISO wise. We need that bay to store that truck in. We'll need it for room, for apparatus, for trailers that we have. We may not fill it to the rim immediately, but eventually it will be stuff full. And if we wait, who knows what the cost is. The layout of the property and talking with Keith and the folks in planning, we're really struggling, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't want to speak out of turn, to get the 3 bays on this piece of property. And it would be cheaper in both opinions. I think Keith spoke up to that last time we were together, that it would make more sense to do it now than try to come back later and do it.
So when we put that third bay or the partial third bay in Fire Station 5, wasn't that to accommodate the ambulance at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Because they
of the
didn't
truck
have
count.
any place to put it, right?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we didn't have ambulance service in Fire Station 5 prior to them adding that partial
That's
bay
correct.
to accommodate it.
That's
Okay,
correct.
that was my memory back then. I
We only had 2 ambulances
wasn't
serving Hendersonville at
exactly
that time.
sure. Yes,
So I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is that we have ambulance service at, that's currently housed at Shackle Island, at their volunteer fire department. We have ambulance service there. So we wouldn't actually be adding ambulance service. We would just be moving the location of that. And for the houses that are Durham Farms, it's probably actually faster for them to be where they are in some cases.
what is the response time from Fire Station, from the Shackle
I have no
Island?
idea. It's not our service, it's the county's.
But
Yeah.
what is it for fire? It's over 9 minutes.
Yes, from Station 5, it's 9.5, 10 minutes. 100%. Just random years of grabbing calls and taking an average, it's 9.5 minutes.
And what would you guess it would be on Chesapeake Harbor, that neighborhood?
In Station 1's territory, and that's just
Okay.
Harbor off
Yeah,
Walton Ferry.
It is.
It's probably 4.5 minutes.
Mhm.
I mean, which is the national standard.
Yeah.
Most every other place in town has that 4.5 minute response time, maybe 5.
So it seems to me that we're kind of going back and forth about a $400,000 expense, which I'm not saying that's not a lot of money. It's a huge amount of money. But we originally issued bonds thinking that this was going to cost 2.5 million. We're adding 2.9 million, more than twice what we originally thought it would cost, because primarily because construction costs have increased, right, Jesse? Is there another reason? Is there any other factor besides?
I mean, the price may have been factored a little bit low. We didn't have construction drawings at that point,
Okay,
but everyone has seen a
but
substantial
90%
increase.
of the reason that we now need more than twice the money that we needed was it about a year and a half ago?
It was a
Yeah,
year.
almost 2
I think
A
years.
year?
It was a year.
Okay.
Almost.
Is because of the rising cost of construction. So, I mean, that's not gonna stop. We
I would,
need to get on this.
I would like to add too, just as a talking point, we did not have to purchase the land. If you would have had to purchase the land with the way real estate is right now, there's no telling what you'd had to pay for that piece of property.
Yeah.
If we would have chosen the 2 sites that were offered to us originally, one was not a lot big enough to do anything. We would have had to back the engine in and out, which is dangerous, super at risk, high risk for our staff. The other position was to move it towards the front of Durham Farms, closest to Stop 30 and Drake's Creek, which would have cost several hundred thousands, if not a couple million, to site prep that, to raise it up, to get it out of the floodplain. This piece of property came up through the Parks Department, was offered at no cost, and it's significant savings to not have to pay for property.
Mhm.
I move that we recommend, I mean, I don't want to cut off discussion, but
Well, does anybody else want to say something?
Alderman Roberson, you
Yeah.
sponsored this.
Yeah, I did. I've gone back and forth on this because the mayor just informed the Public Works Committee that our retirement fee to the state is going to increase. How much did you say?
$815,000.
$815,000. We're also going to have additional expenses. When we first started talking about this fire hall, and I am 100% behind this, I'll go to the mat, and because the response times, as the chairman mentioned, do require, I think, for public safety purposes. But I'm really struggling. When we first started looking at this project, part of the scope of the project was the hope that we would be able to get EMS service from this station. 2 bays were sufficient at that time. It was only after the county, we had this memo of understanding, this candy that we thought we might get to help with the cost,
Yeah.
that we said, well, let's price out a 3rd bay. So we really never even considered, or I didn't as an alderman, building a 3rd bay until the county came forward that we're going to help. Now that looks like it's gone. So a 2 bay, Chief Bush, a 2 bay station can accommodate EMS service. It does in other stations. So if we build a 2 bay, the EMS service can still be provided out of a 2 bay, correct?
Yes, sir. Station 1's a prime example.
Yeah. So I guess all of us have to search ourselves, because there's going to be other expenses that's going to be greater than we thought. I mean, we're trying to bid out some projects, to try to lower some costs like the rugby bathrooms and other capital projects that we know are going to be higher. So it's really going to be a decision on, we don't want to be pound wide.
No.
What is that saying?
Penny
Wise,
and
pound
pound
foolish.
foolish.
You're right, Eddie.
But it's really, can we afford it?
Right.
With all of the other expenditures, and what are we going to have to give up? If we do the 400, what will we have to give up? What will we have to say? No, we don't have money for that this year. And
So
I don't
let's
know
ask
what
that
that.
question
Okay.
of Jesse and
Excuse me, real
Robert
quick.
are right here.
I've got
Wait a
one.
minute, I
You
wanna
can-
say
you can
something.
clarify the property sale. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can we afford
Um,
the 400,000?
Can I say something?
Mhm.
Adding the 400,000 or having the 400,000 included in that, we're looking at an 8% difference here in the cost of fire hall. And I go back again to 7 years ago, how much it cost to add on to it. Now ask your question.
Do we have the money?
We have cash available to,
We have our infrastructure reserve due to our new fund balance policy, which is adequate, right?
yes,
Robert, do you, as the finance expert, do you agree with that?
I do agree.
And I do think that the city in general, BOMA, or wherever you want to say that, we have had a tendency to be short-sighted. And we know we're going to need this 3rd bay eventually, and it's going to be a whole lot cheaper to build it now than it is in the future. I know that in construction, I don't know. I assume that construction costs are not going to continue to experience the inflation that they have in this past year, but we are talking about $2 more than twice what we originally said it was gonna cost in a year and a half. Because we've been, messing around trying to negotiate money from the county that we're not gonna get. And now we have to spend a huge amount of money more than we thought we would. We would have had to spend more because that initial period is when the costs were going up more. It's tapered off. It's still getting more expensive every day, but it's tapered off. And it's just time to cut bait. We need to build it, and we need to build it properly with long-term thought in mind.
And I agree.
I think the return on investment, if we got to put the special operations ahead, rescue out there, that'll give us a little more longevity on running both trucks for wrecks. You're talking about $1 million, 1.2, $1.3 million to buy a new truck. And that may kick that down the road for another couple of years, just by simply having that third bay, having the opportunity to provide that rescue truck from that location and stop wearing and tearing on those big trucks. I think the return on investment, in my opinion, would be greater that we get to potentially hold off a year or two longer before we replace the truck company. We're due in a year or two.
And that's the case for these trucks and the ones after them and the ones after them.
Correct.
It's,
Well, Chairman, I would like to recommend that we move this on to BOMA for further discussion. I'd like to hear an open discussion about
Oh,
this at
absolutely.
BOMA. I know that's going to happen. At this point, I don't think I can support the 2.9. Just in fairness to let you know, I
Okay.
want to hear a holistic discussion about this.
I understand.
Okay.
Totally understand.
Thank you.
But I also, I feel so strongly about this because the primary purpose of government, first of all, is the safety and security of its citizens. That's the primary purpose of
Yes.
government. And only because I've been through shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah.
And it costs the taxpayers an additional $350,000
Right.
back in 2015. If it had been done right from the beginning, we could have saved that amount of
Right.
money. We're talking about not even, 2/3 of it, 7 years later, to put that third bay in at inception. So I am strongly in favor of this, even though it's not even part of my ward. But I know a lot of people that live there, and it's the fastest growing area of the whole city. So I'll make a motion to approve this.
I will second it.
Okay, all
To
in
send it
favor?
with a positive recommendation.
Mhm.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
No,
Okay, so that has been recommended 2 to 3. Okay, second item on the agenda is reading of ordinance 2022-08, an ordinance approving the sale of surplus city property near Fire Hall number 5 for its fair market value. Do I hear a motion on that?
I so move.
second.
Okay, and this is what the mayor had told us about.
Yeah, we talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's selling
selling
the
to the-
land
to the
that's by the
hospital.
fire halls and
Mhm.
hospital. and-
Yeah,
Scotty, do you have anything to
across
say
from where
about that?
Costco's going,
About the
right?
property,
Yeah,
no, ma'am, I don't,
Jesse,
I'm not sure I'm real familiar with what it is.
It's across
the
more-
unused triangle piece behind.
That little odd-
We don't use.
that little odd.
And they need it for like easement and buffer space or whatever
Yeah.
to make their.
Fire station doesn't use it. Basically,
Yeah.
it's a liability because we have to cut the grass there. So
Right, right.
Let's get rid
it's
of
kind
it.
of. a-
I'm good.
Robert,
Hmm.
anybody? And what did we, what was the fair market value, 120,000?
Yeah, the report said 100 to 120.
Okay,
Only thing I would.
the ordinance is, says 100 and,
20,
We had to
yeah.
pick a number, so we picked that number.
the high number, yeah.
So they're definitely gonna buy it then?
They have asked us about it.
Okay.
They've done a
All right, so we're
appraisal
putting it
on
on the
so-
market.
They haven't
More or
signed a
less.
contract.
Right.
but
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Um,
Do we have any questions or discussion about that?
Only thing I would caution is, anytime you do new construction is that we make sure that we don't force any water or there's any infringement on our drive-through areas. We don't force any water towards the station, create any kind of flooding issues. Obviously, we'll look at all that before the sale's done and they're allowed to build. But we really need to pay attention to that we don't have a lot of water running off towards the fire station to potentially flood the station. And I mean, our planning
Well, the
department,
planning
everybody
would
does,
be.
they do a really
They
good
would
job of
be
that.
monitoring that too, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, I move that we send this with positive recommendation.
I second, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye, okay, that is recommended unanimously. Okay, the next item on the agenda is reading of resolution 2022-22, a resolution approving the issuance of senior living revenue bonds for capital improvements to senior living facilities. Do I hear a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Discussion. What is that about? I mean, I'm not
They're
clear.
refinancing what we approved for them to do this. It's a huge amount of money,
Mhm.
but we have to vote so that they can issue it tax-free to their investors. And we already did in 2018, and they're refinancing it. So we vote again for the refi, and they can continue to be tax-free.
Any change that occurs, we would have to go back to the board.
Okay.
Okay, so that's what this big resolution is.
Yeah, it's very long and legally.
Yeah.
It's like-
Yeah, I mean, I was
250
reading and-
Rightfully,
million.
Rightfully
I was
so.
reading
A lot
and
of money.
reading and reading.
Yeah.
It was like,
It's a huge amount of money, and my understanding is it's not that's a corporate, so it was spent over many facilities, not
Right.
exclusively here.
so
on
we're
that
giving them
area.
permission to apply for the refi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any more discussion?
I-
Jesse, anybody? Okay.
Is that why you guys are here?
No.
No, okay. I, oh, yay. I move that we send that to Burma with a positive
Second.
recommendation.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That has been moved to Bowman with a positive recommendation. Okay, Robert, the floor is yours.
Right.
On the other agenda items, and then we'll go over the budget.
All right, we've got sales tax up first for March. This is February activity collected and returned to us in March, 1.3 million. Historically, it's a fairly low month, but if 1.3 million is low, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's estimated $250,000 above where we were last year at this time. And that would be 330 above the year before that.
Good job.
We are 1,650,000 rounded over year to date for the first 9 months compared to FY21. And if you all recall, the last quarter of FY21 is where we really saw sort of the largest
Yeah.
difference in sales tax, where this really started to pick up. So I think we got kind of a test coming up over the next 3 months, seeing if we can exceed the prior year. But as you notice, comparing FY21 to FY20, that's around $500,000 a month that we were collecting in excess of the prior year. So that's
excellent.
right. And so to continue that trend, this is where we'll really see if we're in it for the long run, I think.
So at the present trend, we'll be at almost 3 million over and above. what-
That's
year over
correct.
year.
That's where we're headed.
Mhm.
Yes.
It's great.
I love reports like that.
Mhm.
I'll be
You and I
happy-
both.
I'll happily give that report about.
Next is hotel motel. We're looking at the February collections for January stay, and we collected $20,900, which beat out our first year in FY20 of collecting this. Now this was pre-COVID, so we're trying to skip FY 21 and kind of go to the year before that to get a good base of 18,500. So we're good, $2,400 above where we were at that kind of being our starting point, and we hope to see that continue. Certainly on pace to meet what we budgeted in the mid-year budget at this point.
Well, it's picking up.
Right. Yeah, I think we're back to normalcy in this.
Yeah, you think we'll hit the
In
30,
hotel motel.
in the 30,000s pretty soon.
Yes,
With the nicer weather coming.
Definitely we'll see that next
Mhm.
month. We'll break 300,000. I would say, we budgeted 340 in the mid-year budget, and I would say we'll be right in line with that estimate.
Perfect. Anybody?
Given the traffic in the city this past
Right,
weekend, I would guess that it's gonna be great for April.
You should have just stayed in Ward 5. and That's why I had never left Ward 5. all weekend. I didn't even know that.
Okay, I guess we're on to the budget now.
Yeah.
Mhm, budget review.
Okay, Jesse, do you want to lead this, or Robert, or?
Well, for part of it, we do need to make sure that we go over finances budget.
Yes. Let's go,
a-
let's skip to that.
Separate piece of the
Okay.
entirety of it, so that should be
Okay, so
paid.
what page is that
Back,
on?
right?
Good question. Wouldn't be the back. No, it would be maybe the back of the agenda, but it would be
That's the
page
executive.
32 and 33.
32.
So we're gonna hire somebody full-time?
We are.
What position, Robert?
So we have a position that we've never been able to use. I won't bore you with all of the specifics, but it's stormwater funded. And in essence, we collect stormwater along with our property tax. So
Mhm.
we've sort of been at a point where we've kind of had to absorb that into our daily operations, because we wouldn't be able to hire, if we were to hire someone in that position fully stormwater funded, they would only have a limited set of work responsibilities that they could do. That is, you have to work on stormwater. Whereas if it's general fund, you can do a little bit of a mix of things.
Mhm.
So really what we're doing, it's not so much an increase in cost as is a shift from stormwater over to general fund in that, and allow us to hire for that position. So,
So we're gonna hire one person.
correct.
We're not creating the position, we're just filling a position that's
correct.
already existing, right?
That's right. Well, yeah, and do it,
What
we're
grade level is that, Robert? Yeah.
12, grade 12.
And what's the title?
It's accounting technician.
Okay.
And outside of that, no real change in operations. Just try to make some reductions where I can. And
Now I'm
That's-
looking at the insurance.
Mm.
Is that the 8% increase on insurance cost?
that is 8%. That
So
is
this is
the
reflective of
rise.
8%.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The additional there would be, what we'll see, and each department's a little different. Like some have a majority of their employees that choose sort of the lower options, and
Right, right.
some of the smaller ones don't quite have as much breathing room. So we got to be as accurate as possible. And you never know what everyone's going to select when we do our
Right.
renewals. So.
How does this differ from what you requested for your department?
Well, I've got wish lists and I've got many variations of that. It's almost like a catalog, really. It's these are the services we could provide with this many people and with this many. It's really all personnel for us. As you can see, our
Sure.
operations are
Mhm.
less than a tenth of our salaries and benefits. So, that's
Mhm.
it's not so much what we would like, it's really what the board would like for us to do. And so we could put together that and provide it to you, but really it's just with this many people, we provide these services with these
Sure.
many. And so
You could provide,
correct.
These are the, okay.
Right.
I noticed that seems that assets $1,000 to $7,000, well, these smaller level of assets are things that are frequently cut in our budget
Mhm.
From the previous year. So I'm wondering what this $4,000
Mhm.
that it's reduced. What
So,
does that represent?
so
Do you have to buy software or something, or?
for ours, we're hoping to buy desktop scanners for the majority of our people,
Mhm.
quality scanners, because we've shifted to a new accounting software, and a lot of our procedures allow us to operate from one. We're not dealing as much in paper as we are electronically. So what we're finding is our upload of documentation is all housed within this computer rather than
Mhm.
paper that we've printed and sent copies to everyone. So
And this budget allows you to buy that?
correct.
Okay.
It does.
Robert, are you fully staffed now?
I am not. No, I've got 2 vacancies currently, and but with staff on the way and interviews upcoming.
So that's in progress.
Mhm, correct.
In process. Interviewing,
Right.
grant, finding people,
Trying to find.
hiring
Trying
people.
to find people.
That all over.
Yep.
Right,
And
this
then,
this is reflective of the 6% salary
It is. Yes.
incentive.
And then the training, is that just you have different needs or?
Well, I originally sorry, I'm stumbling over myself. We have 5 individuals in the finance department that have the CMFO certification. And originally we weren't quite sure how much that would cost to get the CPEs for, but the state has graciously put together a mid-year that they intend to continue to do, but they've put some new rules, and our CPE requirements are lower, but they don't roll over. And there's all sorts of changes in the rules for it. But what it led to basically was they're putting on one conference that's going to kind of do most of our CPEs all in a short time period. I don't believe everyone will be able to go to that. We'll have to have some people in the office, but that'll free up some money for us to not have to pay for multiple different
That's
conferences and everything. We
Yeah.
can all get as many as we need to go to that summer conference.
Good.
Do we have to discuss any other budgets at finance?
I think it was just a general review of the general overview of all the others, but at finance, I think traditionally it's just been
Yes.
hours and
What I'd like to bring up is the nonprofits, the nonprofit
right.
committee. And traditionally on the nonprofit is, and I think are you on it, Karen? Okay, so it would be 3 of us plus
Jonathan
Chairman Brown and Jonathan.
and Alderman Brown. Yes.
Brad,
Hey.
I think, is on it.
No.
No.
Karen
No,
is the.
no,
the
It's me. Jonathan is the chairman.
Mhm,
Alderman Hayes is the chairman.
mhm.
And then Alderman Brown is on.
So let me ask the 3 of us,
I think Alderman Brown
when
is
would be the best time
Unless they say-
That 24th,
to have the
that
committee
works
meeting?
for me.
I cannot, yeah, that works for me. I can't, I'm out of town the second week in May,
Mhm,
which
and I'm out of
apparently a
town
bunch
next
of,
week.
yeah,
Yeah,
bunch of us are gone.
yeah.
So yeah, that works for
Is
me.
that a good day?
Yeah.
Okay, Robert, note that 3 of us will be available on that.
I will.
And then get with Jonathan and Steve,
Will do.
and then we can set that.
And,
You can send out the notice for that. Now, the special call finance meeting, I
It
guess so the
doesn't
week
seem-
after that might be. I mean,
I think
Are
the
we still
mayor is
gonna-
going to ask Bowman maybe this evening, or maybe in this meeting, he did ask Public Works if they were available. So he may have some dates for availability for a workshop,
okay,
and then maybe
and then we
you
want to
can
have that after.
call a
In
finance.
the
meeting after
past,
Yes.
Erica would poll us to see when we were available.
But that's
For
for,
workshops.
that's not for a workshop. That
I know,
ordinance
but
wasn't for a
it's
workshop.
like the workshop and needs to
Yeah, I was
be
upset.
well enough attended for the finance for a special call finance committee meeting
Yeah,
to make
I
any
was
sense.
disappointed in the turnout for the first budget workshop.
There's
Wow.
four aldermen there.
That was, yeah,
And
it
he,
was
and
you and
Jesse,
I and then
and
two
Jesse
more.
provided
Half the staff.
hours and hours and days of work on his
Right.
presentation.
Which I appreciated. Thank you.
It was
So
very good, you know, I did too.
I think Jamie plans to pull everyone too.
Okay.
And
Good.
then
That would
once
be an
that's
excellent thing
This
established,
to do.
time of year is bad.
And graduation.
May is
Yeah.
terrible.
we should change the fiscal year because it's tough with everything
Yes,
going on.
it's,
Talk to the state.
I mean.
Start now.
I know it is.
You start
Those of
now.
us
you can
with
have it
older
changed.
kids, we have
5
to
years.
move all of them all over the world, you know, out of this and into that. And
Everything lands on a
graduations
vacation
and-
time, it seems to this time of year.
Okay. All right, okay, so we have let's look at the fund balance.
Yeah, we don't have much. time.
Jesse, if you could,
Yeah, so
Oh,
this
I don't-
is just an update, in
It's under
the
tab D.
audited financial
Okay, got it.
statements.
I'll have it to you.
We show for fiscal year
60.
21. So I'm just gonna go right to the meat of this, so in this
What
chart right
page are we
here.
on, Jesse?
60. 60.
60?
This one right here. May not have it.
I got you. It'd be the last page, last piece of paper.
Thank you.
So this
My
will be quick,
assistant's
but
here.
we'll just look at this chart right here. So general fund had a audited unassigned fund balance of 11.7 million. So as you can recall, we had a fund balance policy that we adopted in May of 2021, where we said the comptroller's recommendation to have unassigned fund balance is 16.67%, which is like 2 months.
Mhm.
So they want you to have 2 months of cash in the bank for revenue shortfalls, expenditures that go above, which, you know, it's smart to do. So 16.67% of the minimum is what they want for the operating budget. So what we took is the mid-year operating budget, so as amended, and we said, what's 16.67% of that? It's 8.5 million. So we had 11.7, we're required to have 8.5, which left us a balance of over $3 million. So our surplus policy, or our fund balance policy simply says, we take that and we split it 50% to a prudent reserve, which is like a rainy day reserve, and we take 50% and we put it to an infrastructure reserve. So the policy just says that finance committee and BOMA will be notified. The finance director goes and does this calculation, and then whatever surplus falls into those categories. So at the time that we adopted the fund balance policy, we had taken prior year surpluses. We went back like 5 or 10 years and we said, hey, based on this, how long is it going to take us to hit this balance? And it was like 5 years.
Yeah.
So we are going to have to now come in and put some more kind of detail on how the fund balance policy works. We weren't really worried about it because it was going to be 5 or 6 years in the future, but we've hit it. So anyway, this is just notification. There's no action that's needed.
Yeah.
It's just saying we have 1.5 million in the infrastructure reserve and 1.5 million in the prudent reserve.
Right.
So over 3 million of reserves after we meet our minimum unassigned fund
Is
balance.
this where we're getting the money for the fire hall?
Yeah, so the infrastructure reserve is a place that we can dip into. The prudent reserve we can dip into unassigned fund balance. There's nothing that says we have to have it. We've never had it in the past. So we have the cash.
It's there for
We have the
these
cash. to do it.
situations, and of course, we'll spend it as soon as we have our money. As soon as we
So from a
Good.
cash flow perspective,
put it aside, we'll blow through it. Of course, we will. That's a little frustrating, but it is what it is.
But we know where it's going.
That's right. Yeah,
so that was just
And we
like
don't
an
have to,
update.
and we don't have to borrow it.
we have still made it 5 years ahead of schedule.
Yeah,
We have our general fund,
I
our
would,
unassigned balance,
yes.
whatever we decide to call it.
Even with the growth that we've seen, which is tremendous, right? I mean, instead of waiting 5 years and just plowing through
Yeah.
$1 million a year, you got to hit it quick. But those dollars go, they only go to a fraction of what they went to 2 or 3 years ago. So even though
Inflation.
it looks like, oh, wow, this is more money than we've ever had in the past,
Well, we've also doubled the cost of what a fire hall costs. Oil index went up.
Right.
So now it costs us more to pave streets.
Our
So
pension, we
Yes.
talked about earlier, TCRS pension.
Everything.
the pension,
Costs
we
going
just
up.
got,
Everything.
just got notice that the pension's gonna go up 3%.
That's
So
minimum.
then we're talking about
Huge.
another 800 grand for
Eight
that.
hundred and 15,000.
That's,
which is
that's our
huge.
minimum contribution. It's
Um,
not that I'm suggesting higher, but I am saying that that's just to meet our obligation versus any higher rate would potentially make up for.
So this doesn't,
It's a-
include the 800,000, right?
Make up.
No.
That's right. Well, I was gonna say, this is an
It does.
It includes the
actuarial.
6% for employee
Yeah, COLAs,
compensation.
cost of living increase.
Uh-huh. And it includes 3 million for paving? Refresh my memory on the
It's
paving.
broken between two categories, so it's broken
Straight,
between.
State Street aid is
State
about a
Street aid.
million, right?
It's a little less than $1 million. It has its categories in there. But I think it's close. It's close. It's south of
It's
3
close,
million, but it's
yeah.
south of 3 million for
Thanks,
paving.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think it's around 280.
And another 2 million in the,
So we didn't
Right.
account for that.
right?
We get about 2 million a year in State Street aid. About $1 million of it goes to salaries and benefits. And then the other million's broken up between sidewalks, traffic signals,
Right,
paving,
right.
potholes.
And then we have another 2 million in paving in the regular paving budget
Yeah,
from Public Works.
I think it's a little bit less. Yeah, yes, we do. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's 2 point something.
And are we able to use any of the utility, the stormwater utility fund for any kind of improvements, street improvements that were damaged as a result of drainage and flooding?
Yeah, so Public Works has really done a good job of negotiating what is stormwater related and what's paving and
Mhm.
kind of parsing the two out and charging the stormwater to the stormwater fund and the paving to the paving fund.
Good.
Perfect,
Good.
perfect.
So our paving number, and I asked you about this, but now I think I misunderstood your answer previously. Our budget for paving, we said we were gonna do 2.8 or a year, but we needed to adjust that for the increased cost of paving, so it equals the same amount of road that it did last year relative,
Oh,
you know.
wow.
So
That's right.
has that occurred in this budget?
So what
or
the mayor
it doesn't
asked
Sound
For,
like it,
for us to do is to present a balanced budget
of
as a
course.
whole. So that was the top priority. And then we kind of worked, we set that as, a cap, and then we worked down and we just added and deleted where we had to get to a balanced budget. So this, as it sits right now, this is a balanced budget between the non-operating and the
Mhm.
operating. There is 2.3 million in supplemental paving at Public Works. And then there's
A million-ish.
about 500, 600,000 maybe in State Street aid. So we're
Very
shy of 3 million.
Just a little under
paving.
3 million.
The paving costs have gone up
Mhm.
Now, what
more
percent,
than that, or
what percent of it?
Yeah, so if we budgeted the same amount last year, we will do less streets. We'll do the same dollar amount this year
Sure.
unless we increase this line item, but it won't go as far on our budgets.
I guess that's what I'm asking, like, is this really adequate to do the same amount of paving?
No,
No,
And so what are we gonna do about that? Because that's our whole plan hinges on doing equal, paving X amount per year. And what it costs is what it costs,
Yeah.
because our streets need,
so I think, the goal and kind of what the mayor had said is, let's present a balanced budget. And if we can do everything within that budget, great. If not, we did increase the paving this year at mid-year
Mhm.
by 500,000,
Mhm.
which enabled us to be somewhat conservative on the budgeting and then take a look at mid-year and say, hey, we're doing pretty good and we can afford, I think we did another 500,000
yes, we did.
in
we
mid-year
did.
for paving. So we still have that option.
Yeah.
To do it here
Yeah.
Okay.
and start a
For
little more
spring.
conservatively, because remember, we do have a mechanism with the mid-year budget where
Mhm.
we're going to reassess. And I think paving was probably a top priority for everyone at the mid-year budget. It got $500,000 that, and the fire department got a good chunk of change for equipment that we needed. So
Mhm.
that's a way that we can balance the budget and then reassess,
Mhm.
mid-year.
And that, having the money to add at mid-year review is reliant on sales tax exceeding their projections. And we're just heading into this next 3 months where we'll kind of have a feel for how we're doing after the COVID crazy weirdness with our sales tax revenue. So I think we all have to hold our breath for the next 3 months to see if it's reasonable that that paving is going to be adequate next year.
Yeah,
We have
hopefully
several minutes
oil
left.
ticks
Yeah,
down a
yeah.
little bit.
Just a few
Sorry.
minutes, Yeah.
We just have
But
several
right now,
minutes.
prices are up, and we have some more costs, like Robert mentioned. We just got notified today of the pension contribution that we're gonna have to increase.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Insurance came in very high. We're negotiating that right now.
Oh,
So
wow.
So this is.
we have a
So
lot of
insurance is
competing
not set.
interests to just balance.
And that's why I think it's so important that we have a second workshop
Mhm.
so we could just kind of hash all this out.
Okay,
Uh,
I just wanted to make sure I clearly understood. Budget is not the same amount of pavement as last budget, but we're hoping to adjust it at mid-year.
Correct.
And it is not your fault that anything I think should be in the budget is or isn't. You were given a task that you completed well
Thank
and
you.
in time for us to have adequate review of it. And I appreciate that, Jesse. So I don't want you to feel like it's balanced. I know it's a good budget. I mean, it's financially sound.
So hopefully everybody could be at the next budget workshop.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, is there any other items for discussion?
Can't.
No.
I
Yes.
can't, he's gonna
E.
poll everybody.
Oh, E, I'm sorry.
Contingency
I'm sorry.
funds.
Oh,
Okay.
So I wanted to just touch on contingency funds. What you will see proposed in this year's budget, which is different from last year's, is a way to make government a little more efficient. This really came to light when we were doing the inline hockey rink, and we didn't have a spec for paint, right?
Right.
So we're looking at, we need to paint this, and we have to go to a committee meeting and two readings of an ordinance,
Yes.
which puts us in about 2 months, right?
Mhm.
So, I thought, hey, a way that we could be more efficient is we make a line item within capital projects where we call it contingency funding, where we have a mechanism where staff can still get approval, but we set some money aside. So, we don't have to tell a contractor, hey, hold on a project for 30 days while we run through a committee and BOMA readings and get approval. And staff doesn't want to be in the position of approving something that they think makes sense that maybe BOMA doesn't think makes sense. So if we put some money aside, and that's what we've done in this year's budget, we've just, in a capital project, you'll see contingency funding, you'll see an amount. So I was just looking for feedback. I was going to create with Robert and the city attorney, create a mechanism where staff can run a very quick review, maybe with the finance committee and capital projects and the mayor, to just give an update to get a verbal approval. So we don't have to run through multiple committees from a pot of money that's already set aside through the budget process. So I just wanted to get some feedback.
What percentage are you thinking of the project? I would assume you'd look at each project as it's funded and have a, 0.5% or 1%.
Isn't 10% the normal?
We're starting from scratch on two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some projects are in the middle.
Because
too.
75,000 just for the fire hall seemed really low for me
Yeah,
in terms of
it is.
contingency.
It
Yeah.
was.
So there's 250, I think, in here for contingency. The other thing with projects is that the contingency funding is probably funding that's actually going to be spent that year. We put projects in here that may or may not actually get
Right.
built because state approvals. So coming up with an exact figure on a project may not be realistic because we may not do that project this year. Although we budget for it in the instance we can start and we can sign a contract. So, I wanted a healthy amount in there. so that at least we could maybe get to mid-year and that and if we saw something coming, we could still go to BOMA. So we have time because we have a pot of money set aside. So if we can see, hey, we're getting close to the end of this, let's go ahead and go to BOMA to maybe just fill it in the contingency account for more money, then we can do that. So again, we were looking to balance the budget. So we took a number that we thought gave us a good pad to where we had time to go to BOMA and the committees if we see that getting chewed through. And just thought, well, what's reasonable given the project. So
And I think you bring up a really good point. If I could mention something too, which is the authorization of to the point where, one is paint, but would it be $250,000 on something trivial or not? The board might want to be involved if it's something extremely major that the ball was dropped on, or otherwise too, right? You wouldn't want to fly through 250, and obviously we would want the board involved on decisions like that too. So that kind of, in a way, like he just said, gives us a buffer while
So maybe
we're waiting for.
So maybe like put a limit on per project of say,
Uh,
does not need a board approval if it's under 25,000 or.
well, so
50,000.
what initially I was thinking is it's at staff's discretion under 25,000. That's
Oh, okay,
piddly stuff.
25 is what I.
From
Had it on
25
head.
up to 100,000. We
Mhm.
go and we have the heads of committees, get approval. Anything after that, if it's not time sensitive, we're going to take it to BOMA.
Okay,
It's so strange.
that's
because
reasonable.
25,000 is so much money, but relatively speaking.
Yeah, on a $5 million project, it's
Yeah.
a small
I mean,
amount.
Yeah,
Mhm.
percentage wise, it's less than 1%.
Don't spend 25,000 of my money like that.
That's actually 0.5% on
Yeah,
5
Yeah.
million.
Yeah, I was thinking 0.5%
Yeah,
yeah.
on.
Okay,
so, okay,
Good.
group,
motion to adjourn.
okay,
Second.
okay.